my name is Cyan Hylian Cream, and I'm back today for another educational cosplay tutorial. So, by high demand from a few people over on Instagram, I was asked if I could do a video on pattern reading. So, if you don't know what patterns are, patterns come in a few different varieties. So we have commercial patterns, patterns that you could buy at Joann's. Rest in peace. Any big box store, Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, I don't know, but or Amazon. And you can get those commercial patterns. They're usually created by brands such as Simplicity, McCall, Butterick, and so on and so forth. And they're mass-produced patterns made at a standardized scale, and those ones can be bought. Usually they're in the price range of like $15 to $20. Unfortunately, when Joann's had it, they used to have great pattern sales, or you can get them on Amazon, and typically they'll fall around the $10 mark. You can also buy them used, or like new, maybe someone's selling one they never used on Marketplace, look on Mercari, secondhand, you know the whole thing. But those are commercial patterns. You have self-drafted patterns, which are usually based off of your specific measurements and using flat patterning techniques or draping techniques to create your own self-pattern, usually on pattern paper or muslin if draped. And then we have indie patterns. Indie patterns usually created by a one-person or very small team. They're usually going to take them a long time to produce these patterns between the trial testing, sending them out to be graded if they aren't doing this all in-house. And they're usually, like I said, a single person or very small team that is creating these patterns. And it'll usually be something very specific, such as a cosplay costume, or your brands like First Stop Cosplay, which make them where they're pretty overall generic of what kind of category they fit in, whether they be a certain type of skirt or a certain type of dress, but still they're made on a very small team, and typically they are very high quality and offer a much larger size range than commercial patterns. Today we are going to be focusing on commercial patterns. So I have my favorite pattern ever here, the Simplicity pattern, and we're going to be taking a look at this pattern and all the things you need to know. So when I went to school for fashion design in our beginning sewing class, after we did our first few modules of just kind of going over the basics of a machine and things like that, we jumped right into patterns. Now, typically your first one in school will be a pair of pajama pants. It's what we do in my beginning sewing class. I teach sewing classes. You should totally take it. And we usually do pajama pants as they are super easy. For today, we're not making anything, but I will be going over all the components that you will need to know of a sewing pattern. So without further ado, let's get started.
So for today, we'll be using Simplicity 8513 for this demo, as well as a pencil and highlighter. And here's the pattern paper, as well as the instructions. So the front of the package is going to have your sizes, as well as these flat lay sketches of each pattern available. And here's the back. So for this, the back has a lot of important information, such as fabrics you can be using, notions such as zippers, buttons, etc., as well as the measurements that are going to let us know how much fabric we will need for this. So let's take a look at that next. We're going to be using our highlighter to go ahead and mark all of the important information that we want to remember while we're working on this. So for this sample, these are the backs of our patterns. I decided for this one, I'm going to go ahead and do pattern C as the sample, which is the one here on the front. So I'll go ahead and highlight that there so I can kind of continue to build a memory that I will be using pattern C. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the body measurements. Most patterns from Simplicity will focus on the bust, waist, and hip. Go ahead and use a measuring tape to take your measurements for each section, and I'd recommend highlighting it. For myself, I fit the measurements under the medium, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of those measurements along with the M to make sure I remember I am a medium. Now I'll go down to bodysuit C that I will be making in the sample, highlight that to remember that's what I'm making, and then I'll be able to highlight the yardage here so that way I know how much fabric I will need for this specific project. Now let's take a look on the inside. This is going to be what's considered your pattern Bible. It is a little pamphlet that comes with your pattern, and it has all the information as well as a step-by-step tutorial on how to actually build it with pictures. For today, we're mainly going to be focusing on the first page, just so you can see more of the general information. The first box, we have the flat pattern sketches of the front and back for each lettered pattern. The next rectangle, we have each pattern piece as it would look when you go and cut them out. Next, we have general directions, and this is going to go over different markings that you'll see, as well as some sewing tips that you can see before and after cutting. And finally, at the bottom, we have our cutting layouts for A through E, or whatever amount of pattern types you have on your pattern. So we're going to go back to our first square, and we're going to go here and mark which one we're making. Again, it's all about visual and helping remember which one we are making. So for this one, I marked C for the front and C for the back. That way, again, I remember these are the two that I will be making. Next, we'll move over to the next rectangle, and I essentially will go through this long list of numbers, and I'm going to go in and highlight every single number that has a C on it. That way I know these are all the pattern pieces I will need to cut out. So now that I have all these numbers highlighted, I'm going to go ahead and highlight the pattern piece up here too. Again, this will help build memory. So once I open my pattern up, I can then know and visually see, hey, this is what a sleeve will look like for this pattern, and this is what I will be cutting for piece 7, and so on and so forth. Jumping back over to that last square of general directions, you can take a look here and see things that you'll find on the pattern, such as notches, dots, and things like that that will need to be marked. And moving down to our cutting section, I'm going to go ahead and mark this again. That way I know I am working with bodysuit C, and depending on the amount of fabric and size I will be using, this is what I'm going to end up using as my cutting guide, or how I will lay the pattern pieces out on my desired fabric. Moving on, we're going to go ahead now to our actual pattern tissue paper. So this is a different pattern, just wanted to let you guys know. My leotard pattern is already cut out as I've used it a bunch of times, but for this one, this was my first time cutting out this skirt pattern from another Simplicity pattern, which is a Japanese school uniform. So for this, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the waistband for 23 that I'll be cutting out for a skirt, and we're going to do what's called bubble cutting. So when I was in college, my professor recommended, instead of cutting directly on the line that you have for your measurement, you will cut around it and save it until you're actually pinned to the fabric to cut your one. We notice it both is a lot more cleaner, and you're less likely to have jagged edges, and it just is a lot smoother to cut. So now taking a look at that pattern, we're going to look at some of the guides here that it's asking. So we're going to cut one of the fabric, one of interfacing, and here you can also see the sizes that are on this waistband to make sure that you have the right pattern type. And if you look at the bottom here, you can see notches. Those are the little parts that we are going to clip with the tip of our scissors, and that part there is in each size. The next thing to notice is the different lines here. So each line corresponds to a different measurement. So make sure as you are going through your pattern, you understand which line is for your measurement. For me, I am a size 10. So as you can see, I'm going to go back to that size 10 line. And once my pattern is pinned and ready to cut, that is where I will cut. For this specific waistband, it goes across both sides. So again, just make sure you know what size you are and cut the proper line on all sides of your fabric. Here's a sample I did for the collar for the leotard. As you can see, this is the sizes that are there. It's asking me to cut one on the fold. When you have a fold, it means it's the folded edge of your fabric. That way it's essentially you're cutting two sides, but it's going to wrap around to one. And as you can see here, here's the different sizes. And as it's pre-cut, I did do the medium since that's what my leotard is. I hope you guys were able to learn something from this tutorial on working with commercial patterns. As you can see here, everything in this little sample section is things I've made with commercial patterns. And I typically use them for cosplay. I use them for personal things as well, but there's an entire world of things you can make, and I hope you're able to make what you would like to with a pattern soon.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope this gave you a little bit of an informational overview of how to read a commercial pattern. It varies by patterns, as of course certain patterns have more pattern pieces than others, and let's be honest, some patterns are very hard to understand or read just because of either the time they were made in or by the manufacturer. But hopefully what I taught you guys in this video can kind of give you an in-depth little kind of look at what you can pinpoint and see so you can make your next project fit your size. Okay, thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!